I do not feel like I get embarrassed often, but I did go fake skydiving at the mall a couple months ago. You know those places? They're called iFly. It's like a clear silo in the middle of a mall that sort of answers the question, like, what do alcoholics do during the day? Just adults in a tube getting fully blasted over an air show. With a Margaritaville behind them. Just shot up like an old bank deposit, you know. Honestly, I would have rather that. Just sucked up in a tube and land in a pile of money and some dum-dums like, ow! Let's do it again. I don't know what the most embarrassing part is. I think it's that I paid extra to get blown higher. I think that's it. When I paid the extra, they said I would get 2 extra minutes. And I thought, 2 minutes? That's robbery. For this price? And then the second I was in there, I wanted out. You know, the only benefit to paying extra is you get a video of your time in the tube. You know when you can watch a video just over and over again to your point where you're just like crying tears of laughter? You guys, picture me, flight suit, bald cap, goggles. I climb into this silo. The stream's already blasting like 200 miles an hour. That seems high. I think 200 might take the skin off the bone. It's probably closer to 120. And it wasn't fresh air, okay? It was the type of air that like gets displaced when you shove your foot in a sneaker, like, you know. So I climb in, the stream's already blasting. I've assumed the position, you know, that I've been taught in my rigorous 10-minute training course. My face skin is getting taken to places it's never been. And the minute the video starts, you see me, I start reaching for the exit. And then the guy in there with me just guides my body back over the stream. And once I'm back, I start reaching for the exit again. And then the guy guides my body back. I'm growing weaker by the second. And I'm beginning to drool because I'm trying to speak, but it's like... I badly want to point, like, out, you know. But I've been taught that if I extend, I will flip, you know. And then I'm never making it out of there alive. When I finally made it out, this guy was hard pitching me on a membership. I'm thinking, I need a restraining order. I never want to see you again. I can't imagine what would get me back to the mall 20 times a month. Besides maybe a job at Auntie Anne's. Something I would genuinely enjoy. I don't know. I feel like if I got that iFly membership, it would irrevocably change my life. I truly think I would lose friends and family. Because they'd check in like, hey, are we going to see you at the baby shower on Sunday? And I'd be like, unfortunately, I can't make it. I have a financial commitment to get blown at the mall. No, I'm not training for anything. You guys, it was $180. And I rent. I'm a renter. I can't be doing that. Are you guys not shocked? Do you guys not? Are you renters? What's happening? Okay. There was no movement here. Is this the Denver elite? They're like, We purchased front row seats. See me after the show. I'm looking for a small guest house to just curl up in after the show. Do you, for the plebes, do you guys like your landlords or what? Boo. No? Fuck that guy? Is it your dad or? No, I feel you. I did actually like my landlords at first. I live in LA, and they're an old married couple. My landlords, they give off like a Seinfeld's parents vibes, to give you an idea. And initially, I thought the dad was like very mean. I thought this guy's like constantly cutting off his wife, never letting her get a word in. And now that I've been there for years, I'm like, that woman's lucky to be alive. I know it sounds bad. It sounds like a woman-on-woman crime to call her voice shrill, but it's absolutely piercing. Her voice is like a combination of a cat and a goose, like. Every conversation is like falling in a prickle bush. I can't get out unscathed. When I'm speaking with her, it's as if I've been entered in a competition that I didn't register for. And for some reason, I want to win. I'm just saying, if I were the husband, I'd be experimenting with sedatives in her cereal. You know, just to slow her down a beat. While I slipped away to the library to use their computer to Google, how do I disappear? She's such a snoop. She's like constantly popping up on the property. She does have an excuse. Their adult daughter lives above me, and she's constantly rollerblading. And sounds like relay races from room to room, just shoving furniture around. Sometimes I think she's just like ripping 3-pound weights and dropping them, you know? I don't know what it is, but it feels like I'm hearing interpretive dance up there. You know, there's sort of a grapevining situation into stuff like that, you know? I mean, I can hear absolutely everything. I hear when she arrives home because I hear the car. It's like beep, beep. And then I'm on the first floor, so I feel like when she walks by my window, she's like... It's the way her walk pattern is like she's always carrying a microwave, like, you know what I mean? And she does a lot of speakerphone. There's a lot of speakerphone in her life. I feel like she is listening to music in her car, and then the car stops, and it goes to her phone, and she's like, oh, I guess it keeps going, you know? I want you guys to guess the last song I heard on her phone in the vestibule, but I don't think you'll get it, so I'm just gonna tell you. It was when the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie. I'm like, who's listening to this? That's not starring in a commercial. Look, sometimes I'm only home for like 2 days a week. I would just like a little piece, you know? I was sitting at my desk one day, and I had my front door was open just for a little fresh air. And the landlady already walked by once. She like given me one of these. And I was like, oh no. So I just sat there and waited, and then I started it was a strong smell of Windex. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna investigate what's happening here. So I go over to my door, and I'm like peeking out, and I can see her out there. She has a rag on an outdoor door, the utility closet. I look out, and she's like this. I'm like, oh God. So I go to do the sneaky close, you know, when you twist the doorknob first, and then you close it, and then you twist it shut. And I open the curtain in the window, get a little fresh air. I promise you, she popped up in my window. She goes, why didn't you say hi? I was like, because I would rather die of black mold than speak with you. I didn't say that. I just told the truth. I was like, well, I could really smell a lot of Windex. She goes, it's not Windex. Do you see what I mean? She goes, it's Murphy's oil, and it smells good. And because words don't work with this woman, and trust me, I've tried them all, I've been experimenting with different tactics of communication, and lately I've been doing this one where I morph my face into the Scream mask, and so when she said it's Murphy's Oil and it smells good, I lean toward the screen and I go, well, not to me! I think I scared her. She was like, and then she walked away, and I was like, game recognized game. When I first went to view the apartment, it felt like a Hollywood audition, okay? Because I walked in to look at the place. She was like, I see on your resume or on your application here, you're a comedian. Do you know anybody I know? And I'm like, I don't know who you know. And sometimes you don't want to share mutuals. When I first moved to LA, I don't know how long ago, but I've never seen a leaf drop. You know, there's no seasons, so the years just sort of fly by. I have no idea how old I am. But whenever it was, I remember I got a phone call from my stepmother. She likes to drink. And she called to ask me to stop talking about that on stage. And well, first of all, my dad calls and then sneaky slips it to her, okay? And she said, I hear that you just moved to Los Angeles. And I wanted to let you know I have a pretty close personal friend that's living there. And she knows Steven Spielberg. I was like, I don't want Steven to know that I know you. So sometimes, you know, I'm wary if somebody's like, who do you know? It's just a weird question. Ultimately, I think what she's looking for is that I am working, you know, I suppose. And at the time, because I'm gonna have to pay rent. So at the time, I was writing on season 3 of the last OG, Tracy Morgan show. She had no clue who that was. She's like, well, don't you tour? At the time, I don't know, I was probably working all the Chuckle Huts, okay? And she goes, what about with anybody famous? And I was like, I mean, I've opened for Mike Birbiglia. She had no clue who that was as well. She's like, anybody I might know? Like, really trying to pull something out of me. I was like, I know, I've opened for Sarah Silverman. She's like, Sarah Silverman! That's my favorite comedian! Maybe she'd come over sometime. So I do. I feel like I was cast in the role of Tenant. So this woman could get closer to Sarah Silverman. And she does. She sort of acts like this casting director of the entire apartment building. Because when I was looking at that day, she was pointing to the front unit. And she was like, and these are our friends that live here. I'm like, can you be friends with people that owe you money in exchange for shelter? And look, she's acting like she's hit the jackpot with me, okay? And she has. I've got perfect credit because my dad left my mom in severe credit card debt, and that really scared us. All of the at the register really add up. And I'm a very clean person because, of course, as children, we also had lice and scabies, which is not my mom's fault. I craved disease as a kid, just so I could get out of school. She did her best. And I have perfect credit. And, I already said that. I just kind of want to reiterate that to the homeowners. What I meant to say is I have a ton of money in my checking account because I don't come from money, and I feel safer looking at a lump sum, watching it depreciate. So, you know, when I found out that I got the apartment, they left me a voicemail. I believe it was on speakerphone. I think it runs in the family. I think they had it on speakerphone and they put it on the kitchen table because the voicemail was like this. You got the apartment! We're excited. You're excited. You can move in early. Give us a call back. And that's when they thought that they hung up the phone. And in the background, you can hear the dad, and he's like, I'm a little apprehensive about this person as a tenant. And in my head, I'm thinking, I've already got the job, you know? You just said I got it. And that's when you hear the landlady. She's like, you know, really getting at him. And that's when it sort of clicks, where you're just sort of like, well, that's why he was constantly keeping her quiet, because if we knew she was this unhinged hothead, we would have never signed the lease. But she does. She gets at him, and he concedes. And then on the voicemail, you can hear him go, he goes, okay, yes, but she's a successful comedian. Which was nice to hear from someone other than a family member. And, you know, I consider myself to be a fairly laid-back person. You know, I didn't look at the back of my head before this show. It's absolutely none of my business. And I would never Yelp Yosemite, for example. Have you ever just been on a road trip and you like come by a natural reserve or like the redwoods and somebody's left a review? Get a life, you absolute loon. And you know, I don't like making people feel bad. So like, for example, if I'm out to eat and there's a hair in my meal and the waiter comes over to check on us and I'm like, there's a hair in my meal, but it's probably your hair and we love you and we'd love some of your hair to go. And so there were things that were wrong with this apartment. It was built in the 20s, but this is kind of why I liked it, and I wasn't really saying anything. And then the pandemonium hit, and my landlords decided to raise the rent. And everybody in my apartment building banded together to write a letter that was like, please, don't do that. They thought I was the ringleader of that. I wasn't. It was Aaron. But they decided to raise the rent anyway. And I was like, fine. If I'm paying more, then I'm just going to say what's wrong with the place, you know? And I had said initially, I brought this up sooner, I was blowing a lot of fuses. And her response was, well, don't use the coffee maker and the toaster at the same time. And I was like, that's breakfast. And then, you know, this next one I was definitely more hesitant about because I'm from Ohio and I didn't want to be like, I'm cold in my LA apartment. But I was experiencing quite a cool draft, okay? And when I finally investigated my front door, there was a sizable gap. Pretty big, like 2.5, 3-inch gap, okay? So yes, I was experiencing a draft as well as debris. And even the bugs didn't even have to duck. They were just like, hello! You know, just walking in. And I brought up the noise, as I've already told you. But also, the mom and the daughter are arguing constantly. Quite a bit of arguing. And sometimes it's also on speakerphone. One time they were arguing upstairs on speakerphone, and through it, I heard the mom go, you need to lower your voice. And then the daughter said, oh, I don't care about your tenant, Beth. I mean, I'm at my desk transcribing it all. You know? I was like, I knew I had a character name. Well, basically, what I discovered, because I could hear so much, I did a little more snooping around my house. And what I found is the window on my back door was actually painted open. So that actually explains why I could hear the daughter so much. It makes me feel a little bit better. But when I moved in, the landlady was like, I made you these curtains. But obviously, it was to cover the crime. Okay, so the morning, she's gonna come over and address all these things that I brought up. I'm supposed to do Lights Out with David Spade. It's like a comedian panel show. And normally that would be in studio, but because the pandemonium's hit, we're gonna do it on Zoom. And, you know, I don't wanna ruin stuff for you guys, but I think you're smart people. And I'll just say, when you do like a comedian panel show, like after midnight or at midnight, usually about an hour before you go to tape, the producers send you the prompts so you can get a head start on writing jokes. And I'm sorry if that hurts anybody here. I mean, some stuff's improvised, but nearly all of it's written. And so when you're going to studio to tape, all the dudes arrive and start writing their jokes, and all the women arrive, and we're trying to write our jokes while we get our makeup done so we don't have to field questions about our mental health. And that's just something I wanted to complain about briefly. But I'm sitting at my desk, I'm writing my jokes. She knocks, and I'm like, oh no. So I go to answer the door. This is like the height of the pandemonium. People have no clue what's going on. They're like wiping down cereal boxes, okay? So I let her in. I ask her to take off her shoes, which doesn't seem like a lot to ask. She melts like a Disney witch. She's like, "Rah!" Notices that she's wearing slides and then flicks them off into my cupboard. And she goes, yeah, we do that at our house too. And then scurries into my place. I'm like, what is So I follow her to my front door. She's investigating the gap, and she's looking down at it, and then she looks back at me, and she goes, yeah, pretty big gap. We have that at our house, too. We just put a towel down. And then genuinely, I was like, cool, do you want me to put a towel down? And she was like, no, we'll fix it. And then instead of like scurrying this time, she starts slowly walking down my hallway, like looking around, probably for Sarah Silverman. And she's like snooping, and I'm like tapping her like this way, like we're going to the back door next. So she's at the back door with it painted open. She's going on and on and on. She's like, it's such a shame. This is the last original door in the building. It's such a shame to have to get rid of it. And my anxiety is like rising because I have to do this TV show in like 10 minutes. And I start to get emotional, you know, which is totally okay to do. And she sees that I'm tearing up, and she looks at me and she screams in my face. She goes, you need to get help. I was transported to a memory of mine, probably a year and a half prior, where her and her daughter were upstairs screaming at each other. I was sitting at my desk having an abortion. Like I had just taken the abortion pill. I had a Comedy Central crew. There's a Comedy Central crew in my house interviewing me on my writing process, like how I do what I do. Because you can't plan those things. I mean, the shoot was planned, the plan B not working, not planned. So they're screaming so loud, the director looks at me, he's like, we actually have to hold for family antagonism. We wait a second, a mattress flies down the stairs into the courtyard area, and then it gets silent, and the director's like, and we're back. So I finished that interview, it's available somewhere online, and now you guys have that little backstory. And then later that night, I ended up doing a table read, so we really can have it all. So I come back into my body. I'm thinking about that moment. I look at this woman. I'm very proud of myself. I said, I need to get help. And then I pointed upstairs and I said, after hearing all the things that you've said to your daughter over the years, I have a whole new understanding for what she's going through. And then she shape-shifted back into a human being. And she looked at me. She goes, well, you're clean as a whistle. You pay rent on time. You're a mensch. No hard feelings. I was like, the hardest of feelings. And then I kicked her out the back door. No, I didn't kick her. I was gentle. I helped her out the back. She actually had cancer at the time. I forgot to say that. And probably from the rent hike. So I help her out. And she's like, we'll be back tomorrow with an electrician. So I had to do the spade taping on Zoom. It was fun. It went fine. The next morning, she shows up. I mean, I can hear her before I see her because the window's still painted open. They go around the apartment building to the back where the fuse box is, which is outside. So I go into my bathroom so I can listen better because it's right outside my bathroom window. And so whenever I blow a fuse, I have to go outside with a wooden spatula and flip it back on because it's so old it makes my fingers bleed. I think a lot of you guys thought I was doing better than this. And so I'm listening through the window. You can hear the electrician. He's working as fast as possible to get away from this woman. And then you can hear him. He goes, nope, your tenant's correct. Her panel is hooked up to the entire back lot and all the security floodlights around the building. And then you hear her, she goes, okay, so what do we need to do? Like, even her whisper's loud. What do we need to do? I was waiting to see if they were going to do anything. And to their credit, they did. They called me and told me and said that they were going to give me a $400 credit on my rent that month. Look, I don't know how much kilowatts are. Is that enough to pay for everybody for years? And they did give me a weather strip underneath my front door, and they replaced my back door. It was with a really crappy door, and we had a bunch of rain, and it blew up. But that's like all the pieces out the bottom. Anyway, it's another story. And she beat the cancer. You guys seem stressed about that. I don't know if she beat it as much as the cancer was like, we gotta get the fuck out of here! We're leaving. She's difficult to explain. You know, I feel like, you know when you don't like somebody at work and you're trying to explain it to your partner and they're like, they don't sound that bad. And then they meet them and they're like, that's her. This is just a slice of the tales. There are so many. At one point, I avoid her at all costs, but she'll sometimes nab me in the backyard when I'm running to my car. And I was doing a show at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. She's like, I will see you at the cemetery. You have any material about us? I was like, if this is for that, please stop. There is an update. I actually do have a happy ending for you guys. I recently moved. Thank you. I moved. I felt like if I was going to put this in a special, I should probably move first. Just to keep things on the up and up. I just think a lot of us really needed to get that off our chest.
Okay, it's fine, it's good. It's real. She's a real girl. I can see that. The other one was a tight ass.
This one, she's a successful stand-up comedian.
She's successful.